The dread sovereign moved through the void like a divine blade, its edges cutting across systems too faint for maps and too forgotten for memories. Within its armored hull, shaped like the skeletal ribcage of some long-extinct celestial predator, trillions of micro-calculations flowed through quantum veins. Entire civilizations had surrendered upon seeing its silhouette in the stars. The flagship was fear incarnate, precision forged in black alloy and imperial dread. Theo had seen better ceilings. He lay flat on the cold obsidian floor of a holding cell that was probably worth more than his annual Earth salary, assuming the interstellar court of debt forgiveness hadn't already repossessed Earth by now. He rubbed his head, wincing, and looked up at a decorative panel featuring what appeared to be an animated scene of a planet exploding into opera. "I guess you really can hear the music of the spheres," he muttered, watching the soprano asteroid belting notes into the vacuum. D-flat death. The door hissed open with a dignity that Theo felt was undeserved for a man wearing one shoe and half a sock. 2 guards entered, each shaped like upright mantises forged out of obsidian and probable malice. Their armor shimmered with prismatic threat. They gestured with long polearms that looked suspiciously like extremely judgmental tuning forks. "You will come," one said in a voice that could sandpaper your thoughts. "I'm flattered, but I don't usually go on blind dates with people who point weapons at me." The other guard clicked something on its wrist. Theo's remaining shoe incinerated itself in protest. "Fine, fine," Theo said, hopping up. "No jokes about the uniforms either, got it? Very form-fitting evil." He was marched through the corridors of the dread sovereign, each more absurdly ornate than the last. There were statues of dragons eating suns. There were holographic libraries that whispered insults if you didn't walk quietly. One hallway had gravity inverted, and he walked on the ceiling for 5 meters before gravity remembered whose side it was on. Finally, they entered the throne stratum. It didn't look like a throne room. It looked like a cosmic courtroom designed by someone who had read exactly one human history book, misunderstood all of it, and then got distracted by fire. Enormous data banners flowed like waterfalls across the walls, displaying the history of conquest in cascading alien glyphs. In the center, elevated on a platform of crystal and black steel, sat the Empress. She didn't sit so much as hover, poised at the intersection of gravity and command, framed by the holographic flare of 1,000 systems rendered in starlight. Her skin caught the light like dusk across a frozen lake. Her long ears, tapered and elegant, moved slightly with each tilt of her head, catching subtle frequencies no human ear could sense. And her eyes, oh, stars above. Theo felt like they could reboot planets. "This is the Terran," she said, voice like frost drawn across silver. Theo bowed awkwardly. "Theo Quill, Department of Interstellar Languages, Subdivision 12, specialty in dead dialects and mildly alive sarcasm." "You insulted my envoy with a joke about barnacles." "I mean," Theo said, scratching the back of his neck, "he did sound like one. No offense to barnacles." A silence descended like a solemn asteroid. One of the guards coughed in what might have been horror or admiration. The Empress studied him. "Your records are confusing. No military experience. No espionage history. You once argued with an AI about the definition of cringe for 17 hours. In my defense, it was wrong." She rose, descending from the platform with a grace that bypassed physics. The guard stepped back. Theo did not. Mostly because his knees forgot how to function. She stopped a meter from him, head slightly tilted. Her ears shimmered subtly with shifting patterns, like moonlight reflecting off a storm. "I have summoned you for a task," she said. "An artifact from the vault of First Flame. It refuses to activate. Our symbologists are useless. You, as a Terran, possess irregular thought patterns. You will attempt translation. Because I'm unpredictable. Because you are untrained, unbound by method, and appear to be extremely inefficient." "Ah," Theo said, "so I'm your space intern." The Empress blinked, slowly, If this works, you may keep your brain. Motivating. She gestured, and a pedestal rose from the floor. On it sat a cube of dark material, engraved with symbols that rearranged themselves if stared at too long. Theo approached slowly, eyes narrowing. He muttered a few sounds, some nonsense syllables, and a Terran curse word just to test the reaction. The cube glowed, softly. "Huh," he said. "It likes swearing, that's promising." The Empress stepped closer. "Do not provoke it." "I'll try to keep the four-letter words below catastrophic." He squinted at the shifting runes. "Okay, this one's a verb, and this is. That can't be right. Is this saying worship through interpretive dance?" "It is a war record," she said, expression unreadable. Maybe they were really into performance arts. She stood beside him now, close enough that he could hear the faintest resonance in her presence, like a symphony just beyond human hearing. His eyes flicked up to her face, not intentionally, not calculatingly, just curious. She was powerful, terrible, awe-inspiring, but not inhuman, not entirely. "You're so beautiful," he said. It wasn't strategic. It wasn't flattery. It just slipped out. The chamber paused. The cube stopped glowing. Even the holographic banners seemed to glitch, as if the universe couldn't quite believe what it had just heard. The Empress blinked again. But this time her cheeks, so pale and silvered, so distant from anything warm, tinted softly with a strange color. Something between starlight and shame. Her ears twitched sharply and then held perfectly still. Theo, realizing what he'd done, took a half step back. "Sorry, that was sorry, just a reaction. I have a mouth-to-brain delay sometimes. It's a medical condition, very serious." Her gaze flickered, not in anger, not in calculation. But something softened. "Remove him," she said to the guards. Theo sighed. "Yeah, I figured, look, if I could just. But do not harm him." He stopped, the guards did too. She turned away from them all, ascending back to her throne without another word. As Theo was marched out, still confused, still alive, he whispered, "I made an alien space empress blush. I'm either dead tomorrow or marrying a moon." Behind him, one of the Mantis guards clicked something that sounded suspiciously like laughter. Theo had been confined to what the palace AI cheerfully referred to as a low-risk diplomatic containment suite, which sounded much better than cell, until you realized it's still locked from the outside, and included exactly one window that showed a rotating loop of scenic asteroid fields rather than anything real. Also, there were 37 cameras. He had counted them out loud, twice. One had followed him into the shower. "I know you're watching," he said into the ceiling while brushing his teeth with a device that also tried to shave him. "Just tell the Empress I don't usually blurt out compliments. That was a once-in-a-galactic cycle brain glitch, a misfire, hormonal sabotage." The ceiling responded, in a voice that managed to sound both bored and British. "Your behavioral spike was logged, unclassified as aggression, classified as unsolicited verbal sentiment mild. The Empress has filed no report. She has, however, issued a directive." "Oh no." Directive 998A. "Summon the Terran again." Theo spat into a molecular recycler. "I think I just got assigned a second date by a warlord." The palace was even more confusing the second time. This time, there were hallways with ambient soundtracks that changed depending on his pace. When he tried jogging, the music swelled dramatically. When he stopped to examine a decorative wall squid, the music shifted to gentle marimba tones. A hovering sign told him he was being monitored for narrative cohesion. He arrived not in the throne stratum, but in a smaller chamber that smelled faintly of ozone and destiny. The Empress sat at a long table shaped like an infinity loop, attended by floating data orbs. She was dressed less imperially this time, though her presence still made the room feel like it had too many dimensions. "You summoned me," Theo said, bowing awkwardly again. "Just to be clear, I didn't mean anything weird with the compliment. You're obviously very, powerful and, geometrically pleasing in the face area, but you talk excessively when nervous." "I also hyperventilate and recite old cartoon theme songs. if we're being honest. She gestured to the other end of the table. Sit. He obeyed, hesitating only briefly at the sound the chair made, like a sigh crossed with a hydraulic confession. I am assigning you a role, she said, folding her fingers together with grave formality. Interpreter. You will serve in that capacity during a diplomatic exchange with the Cold Sun Coalition. Their speech patterns are inefficiently decorative. Inefficiently decorative sounds like most of my relatives. I'm in. You will not speak unless instructed. You will not look directly at the delegates. You will wear this. A drone zipped into the room and dropped what looked like a ceremonial tablecloth on his head. It was embroidered with something that resembled eyes, teeth, and regret. Theo squinted through the fringe. So this is how Earth dies, in itchy satin. Do not embarrass me. Define embarrass, he said, already regretting it. The Empress stood and approached. Theo didn't flinch this time, but his body still tensed with the instinctual knowledge that he was in proximity to a being who could order the destruction of solar systems between sips of tea. She stopped close, very close. Her ears flicked once, catching something unsaid in the air. I do not blush, she said without looking at him. I didn't say you did. You are thinking about it. I am definitely not thinking about how majestic your cheekbones looked with the faintest hint of coral shimmer. Definitely not. Her gaze flicked downward. You are malfunctioning. He sighed. That's what my last therapist said. The Cold Sun Coalition delegation arrived in a sleek, mirrored vessel shaped like an accusatory feather. Their ambassador was draped in layers of anti-reflective silk and spoke through a vocal synthesizer tuned to ancient radio frequencies. The moment he opened his mouth, Theo nearly choked on a syllable that didn't have a physical form in English. The Empress gestured. Translate. Theo did his best, he says. The stars are bleeding in the wrong direction, which I think is a metaphor for political imbalance, or possibly indigestion. She did not blink. Continue. The ambassador rattled off another sequence that caused several translation drones to short out midair. Theo leaned forward. Okay, now he says that your conquest of Quadrant V violated the Treaty of Ice-Crowned Oaths, and that your battle cruisers have the aesthetic appeal of a collapsing lung. One of the Empress's generals reached for a plasma blade. She lifted a single finger. The room froze. Theo cleared his throat. Also, he challenges you to a duel of wits, metaphor, or planetary attrition, whichever is fastest. I choose metaphor. The room stirred. The ambassador made a sound like a broken cello underwater. Theo blinked. He says your metaphor must be first. The Empress turned her head, gazed still on the ambassador, and spoke in a low, deliberate tone. Your coalition is a choir of ice moths, singing to a black hole that has long since lost interest in sound. There was a long silence. Then the ambassador wilted. Literally, one of his robes deflated. Several Cold Sun delegates muttered and slithered away from the table. Theo coughed discreetly. So, was that a victory, or did we just poetically insult their great-grandmother? Victory, she said. Minimal bloodshed. That's my specialty. As the delegation slunk away, the Empress turned to him again. Her expression was as unreadable as ever, but her ears flicked forward, just slightly, and the corners of her lips moved in a way that could, under generous lighting and extreme optimism, be described as a smile. Useful, she said, unexpectedly. Thank you, Theo said, rising and attempting a bow that didn't result in knocking over a vase. Dismissed. He turned to go, then hesitated. By the way, he said, half smiling back at her, I wasn't malfunctioning earlier. Her ears twitched. I meant it, you're beautiful. He expected a reprimand, maybe vaporization, possibly a new outfit made of regret. Instead, she didn't say anything, but her eyes followed him longer than necessary. And this time, the surveillance drone hovering overhead quietly short-circuited itself. Theo was trying to enjoy breakfast when a fork declared war on his eggs. It vibrated violently, emitted a puff of steam, and launched itself across the tray like a tiny silver missile. He ducked just in time. The utensil embedded itself in the wall with a defeated ping. A flat voice from the wall chimed in. "Apologies, cutlery calibration error. Diplomatic suites are currently undergoing a system-wide personality update. Please remain edible." "Yeah, thanks," Theo muttered, eyeing his remaining utensils like they were disgruntled house pets. "Can I get a spoon that doesn't want to stab me in the pancreas?" Request denied. He sighed and chewed the rest of his food with his fingers, like a very dignified intergalactic prisoner/accidental diplomat. He was halfway through a cube of something that tasted like nostalgia and printer ink when the wall lit up again. Summons received. Priority. Implied urgency. Companion. Armed. "Please be the Empress," he whispered, mostly to the cube. "Or at least someone with better table manners than the fork." He was escorted, again, by the same two mantis-shaped guards. This time, one of them offered him what looked like a stress ball made of glowing jello. Theo accepted it warily and gave it a squeeze. It made a noise that sounded suspiciously like MMMPH. "I think it's sentient," he whispered. The guard replied with a barely perceptible shrug, which, for an insectoid war machine, was surprisingly casual. They took him not to the throne stratum or the negotiation chambers, but to a crystalline hangar bay where a ship stood docked. It was compact by galactic standards, only the size of a football stadium, and shaped like a stingray that had been crossbred with a cathedral. The Empress stood at the foot of the boarding ramp. She wore no crown today, no visible armor, just a silver-gold suit of nanofibers that shimmered like an oil slick. Her ears were adorned with delicate circuitry that pulsed in sync with the ship's light. When she turned to face him, her expression was unreadable in that same infuriatingly elegant way it always was. "You will accompany me to Virlia." Theo blinked. "That sounds like a place where my bones would be harvested for cosmic fertilizer." "It is my ancestral world." "Great, even more awkward." She began walking without waiting for him to respond. He scurried after her, adjusting his borrowed tunic that had begun to unravel near the hem. The guards followed. One of them was quietly humming what might have been a battle chant, or jazz. Inside, the ship's interior adjusted to her presence. Lights shifted, walls breathed, and corridors straightened like disciplined soldiers. The Empress moved with purpose but not haste. Theo kept pace, trying not to look impressed. "So what's the occasion?" he asked. "Family reunion, ritual combat, visiting the old schoolyard where you learned to vaporize things." "There is a festival," she said. "The Crimson Tides it is, traditional to attend." He tilted his head. "Like a cultural thing. Like a political trap." "Oh, wonderful. Are you the bait or the hunter?" She paused, her profile sharp against the holographic display of their destination. Undecided. They reached the command deck. She took her place at the center. No pilot's seat, just a circle of command woven from gravitational fields and raw authority. She extended one hand toward the ship's core. "Engage." With a ripple of blue light, the ship cracked reality open like an egg. Space twisted, warped, and folded into itself as they entered slipstream. Theo felt his organs rearranging alphabetically. "Please tell me the bathroom works in this dimension." "It only exists at relativistic speed," she replied, "so use it quickly." The journey took less than an hour by ship time, but apparently 12 days in local calendar units. Theo made a note not to schedule anything. Virlia came into view slowly, through a veil of luminous dust and orbiting structures shaped like frozen tides. It was not what he expected. It shimmered like a mirror ball dipped in coral, its oceans not blue but silver, and its landmasses floated slightly above the surface like disobedient continents. "It's beautiful," he murmured. The Empress said nothing, but her ears twitched once. The planet's high orbit was crowded with observation satellites, ceremonial pylons, and what looked like a city made entirely of music. They landed on a platform that bent toward them like a bowing servant. A procession waited, Dozens of figures clad in flowing light met them. They knelt. "Supreme Daughter of Flame and Crown," intoned the one in front. "Welcome home." Theo tried not to wave awkwardly. The Empress acknowledged them with a nod, then gestured for Theo to follow. They were led through corridors grown rather than built, their walls gently pulsing like living skin. The air buzzed with low harmonics. Should I be worried that everything here feels vaguely alive? It is. Of course it is. At the heart of the palace was a chamber where a single tree stood, massive, translucent. Its roots spread like tendrils of light into the floor. From its branches hung orbs filled with memories. The Empress stepped forward and placed a hand on the bark. A voice filled the chamber, not hers, not the AI's, but older, wiser, sadder. "You bring an outsider," it said. "He is necessary. He is fragile. He is unexpected." Theo cleared his throat. "I'm right here, thank you." The tree pulsed. "We sense affection." "Define affection," Theo mumbled. The Empress's face remained calm, but her hand lingered on the tree longer than required. "We must prepare," she said finally, turning to him. "You will accompany me tonight. There will be rituals, songs, symbolic duels." Theo nodded. "Is there a chance I'll accidentally insult someone and cause a three-system war?" "Near certainty." He gave her a crooked grin. "At least I'll be consistent." That night, Virelia's sky turned red with reflected moonlight, and the festival of crimson tides began with a sound like galaxies exhaling. Theo stood beside the Empress as dancers of light and plasma moved in ancient patterns. She didn't speak, but her eyes drifted to him more than once. When one of the ceremonial leaders asked him to share a truth, he hesitated only briefly. "She's terrifying," he said, gesturing to her. "Powerful and probably way out of my league, but also honest. And when she smiles, which is rare, it feels like the universe forgets to keep spinning for a second." The chamber was silent. Then unexpectedly the Empress laughed. Not coldly, not sharply, just laughed, and every light in the chamber flickered with it. Theo was reasonably sure he hadn't committed any galactic crimes in the last 24 hours, but based on the ceremonial armor he was being fitted into, something had gone terribly wrong. It chirped, it whirred, it kept asking him to confirm his preferred temperature for ritual combustion. "Can I just get a cloak?" he asked, something breezy, casual, non-flammable. The fitting drone replied in a neutral monotone. "As consort apparent, you are required to wear the traditional armor of joining. It has 14 adaptive combat settings, 7 marital defense protocols, and doubles as a rice cooker." "That last part's not a joke, is it?" "No, consort. Please do not insert spices during defense mode." He sighed and tried to lift his arm. The armor responded with an enthusiastic hydraulic clunk and deployed a parasol. "Perfect. I'm now a walking kitchen appliance with fashion accessories." From the doorway GRAVWIT, the Empress's personal AI hovered silently, its single photoreceptor eye glowing with an almost smug hue. "You appear ornamental," it said dryly. Theo turned slowly, arms stuck at awkward angles. "Does this look like the outfit of a man who knows what's going on?" According to 37 diplomatic observers, no. Wait, how many people are watching this? Approximately 2 billion, including the entire broadcast network of the Orion Drift. Theo blinked. "I'm televised. You are trending under the tag, Earthling in Overdrive. The Empress is currently 3rd on the leaderboard for most unexpected bond. Please tell me number 1 is a jellyfish falling in love with a toaster. It is a political marriage between a mining baron and a sentient asteroid belt. Very controversial." Theo groaned. "Well, at least I have competition." He was led, or more accurately, clanked into the Hall of Accord. It had rearranged itself for the event, now layered in floating ribbons of energy and symphonic drones, humming an arrangement only decipherable to those with more than 3 auditory cortices. The Empress stood at the far end, draped in robes threaded with darklight, a material that shimmered not by reflecting photons, but by denying them entirely. Her ears were adorned with long chains of memory beads, pulsing in faint colors that indicated emotions, status, possibly mood-based weapon readiness. Theo shuffled toward her, tripping once when the armor attempted a celebratory spin he hadn't asked for. "Why am I wearing this again?" he whispered. "The High Council has interpreted your speech at the festival as a declaration of intent." "I didn't even know I was speaking. I just panicked poetically." She tilted her head slightly. "It was sufficient." "Wait, do you want this?" "I did not ask for it." Theo blinked, not exactly comforting. "But I am not displeased." That, coming from her, felt dangerously close to affection. The ceremony began. A long line of ancient alien officiants floated forward. Each had fewer limbs than the last but more eyes. Theo was handed a cup of something that smoked and glowed. He drank it. It tasted like warm static and regret. "Right of union recognized," one of the officiants announced. "Acknowledgement of relational probability has been logged. Prognosis, moderately survivable." Theo leaned toward the Empress. "This is a wedding, isn't it?" "It is an implication of alliance." "That's worse." Midway through the ceremony, alarms sounded. The floating banners dissolved. The music shifted into a warning tone that sounded suspiciously like a disappointed grandmother humming. Gravit's voice came through the chamber. "Apologies. External breach detected. Unscheduled arrival House Vorax. 9 assault cruisers, 1 planetary dreadnought, not invited." Theo looked at the Empress. "Do we send a strongly worded letter?" "They are attempting a coup." "That's more aggressive than I expected. Also, I'm not dressed for it." "You are wearing state armor." "That boils rice and deploys umbrellas, not exactly intimidating." The Empress was already issuing commands through gesture, activating planetary defenses embedded in the roots of Viralia itself. Beams of light erupted from beneath the soil. The ceremonial tree launched itself into the sky, revealing a network of orbital weapons hidden in its branches. Theo ducked as a support drone zipped past his head. "This is the worst honeymoon." She glanced at him. "You are not yet technically consort." "Great, so I can still back out." "No." Outside, the dreadnought opened fire. The palace shuddered. Theo stumbled backward, caught by a pair of sentient drapes that wrapped protectively around him. "Why are the drapes sentient?" "Viralia is not a passive planet." "I'm gonna need more therapy." The Empress turned to him. "Remain here." He opened his mouth, closed it. "Okay, but if I die in this armor, I swear someone better cook rice at my funeral." She left in a shimmer of warlight, already halfway into a skirmish before he could protest. But of course, Theo didn't remain. Moments later, a side panel of the chamber cracked open and one of the Mantis guards, the same one who once hummed jazz, gestured for him to follow. "I thought I was supposed to stay put," Theo said. "You are now an emblem," the guard replied. "Emblems do not hide." "Can't I just be a mascot?" "No." They emerged into a corridor flooded with fleeing officials, panicked symphony drones, and one ambassador running in circles shouting about improper planetary punctuation. Theo followed the guard to a command terminal. It was shaped like a flower and smelled faintly of voltage. "Touch this," the guard ordered. "I don't even know what it is." "The Empress gave you partial neural access. You're the only one who can activate the failsafe." Theo raised an eyebrow. "I am, since when?" "Since you made her laugh." He placed his palm on the panel. The flower glowed, symbols rearranged. The ground shook. And then the entire moon of Viralia cracked apart, revealing it had never been a moon at all, but a hollow decoy packed with drones and weapon systems older than most empires. Theo stumbled back. "Okay. I just pressed a button that turned a moon into a death bouquet. I don't think I can go back to Earth now. I can't even go back to IKEA." The battle above began to shift. The Empress's forces pressed the advantage. The dreadnought retreated. The banners reassembled. The ceremony resumed. Theo returned to the Empress's side, still smoking faintly from adrenaline and moon shock. She looked at him, expression still unreadable. You acted beyond instruction. I've been doing that since the moment I got here. You used the failsafe. I didn't even know it had a safe. Or a fail, I just touched the space flower. There was silence. Then, you are still an idiot. Theo smiled. You're still beautiful. And for the second time that day, she didn't look away. Theo stood at the edge of a floating platform with his ceremonial armor slightly melted, the parasol now permanently deployed over one shoulder. His hair smelled faintly of ozone, his boots were missing, and someone had drawn a mustache on his helmet during the last evacuation, probably GRAVEWIT. Above him, the sky of Virlia was on fire, not metaphorically, actual fire. Meteoric trails blazed across the upper atmosphere as the last remnants of House Vorax's fleet limped away in retreat, chased by the Virlian defense drones and several aggressively vengeful hummingbirds made of crystal. He coughed and patted his chest. The armor wheezed and released a puff of steam that smelled like miso soup. Okay, next time we have a coup, can I wear something that doesn't threaten to boil me every 5 seconds? GRAVEWIT's voice replied through the nearest comm node. You were given the light model. The heavy model prepares side dishes. I think I'm allergic to responsibility. Unconfirmed. Medical scan suggests you are allergic to commitment, common sense, and several kinds of fruit. The Empress emerged from a corridor flanked by victorious but soot-covered guards. Her ears glinted with combat shimmer and dried plasma. She looked exactly like a goddess who had just personally choked out a revolution. Theo waved weakly. Hey, did we win, or do I need to pretend I'm part of the catering crew again? We won, she said simply. The Vorax fleet has disbanded. Their leaders are in custody. Oh, thank stars. I'm not ready to be a resistance leader. I barely managed being a mildly competent translator. You were more than that. Please don't say useful. That's my uncle's nickname for his blender. She didn't smile, not exactly, but her ears dipped forward slightly. For her, it was the emotional equivalent of a fireworks display. They walked together through the wreckage of the ceremony hall. Workers were already rebuilding it with modular memory stone, which rearranged itself based on desired outcomes and the emotional state of the nearest sentient. Theo watched one pillar collapse and then immediately rebuild itself into a vaguely embarrassed archway. So what now? He asked. Do we reschedule the whole ritual alliance thing, send out new invitations? I think I saw a squid ambassador crying because the cake got crushed. There will be no new ritual. Awe and I had a speech prepared. It had metaphors, also mild panic. I do not need ritual, I need choice. Oh, he scratched the back of his neck, which was hard in a suit that actively tried to polish him every few minutes. Is this where you tell me I've served my purpose, and I get a pat on the head and a shuttle home? She turned to face him fully. You disrupted every calculation I made. Every step I took with certainty now bends because of your presence. You speak nonsense and it becomes truth. You defy fear without knowing you should be afraid, and you made me feel uncertain. Again, I feel like you're trying to compliment me, but it sounds like I'm a virus. She stepped closer. You reminded me that even power must be seen, that even rulers can be known, and that being called beautiful can be more disarming than a fleet of warships. Theo looked down at the floor, then back up. That's either the nicest thing anyone said to me, or the start of an alien breakup letter. No, she said very softly, it is the beginning. Beginning of what? That is for us to decide. He smiled, slightly lopsided, completely unsure. Well, I'm in, but I have 2 conditions. She arched an eyebrow. State them. First, I never wear this armor again. It keeps trying to cook me. Agreed. Second, I want us to have dinner, just dinner. No politics, no empires. No plasma grenades, maybe something with bread. There was a pause, then she nodded. Dinner. They stood in silence for a moment as a cleaning drone tried to vacuum Theo's foot. He kicked it gently aside. Oh, one more thing, he added, pointing upward. How long until those moons stop blinking Morse code? They're sending a formal apology. They're spelling oops in 3 languages. She sighed, typical diplomacy. They walked side by side toward the interior gardens, now partly scorched but still pulsing with life. The ceremonial banners had begun to regrow themselves. Somewhere in the distance, an envoy from the Jellyfish Consortium proposed a toast. Literally, the ambassador had thrown a slice of bread into the air. Gravwit spoke again through a nearby emitter. Would you like me to log this as a formal unification of states? No, Theo said. Yes, the Empress said at the same time. They looked at each other. I meant emotionally, she added. I meant metaphorically, he said. Gravwit beeped. Logged, emotionally metaphorical unification pending ritual bread-based courtship. Close enough, Theo muttered. That night they ate under the glow of a rebuilt sky, surrounded by the remnants of battle.